mit der Veranstaltung beginnen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. We will start shortly. Thank you.
Zu neuf, meine Schwester und Brüderlech. Dai, da, 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 dai, da, 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 dai, dai, dai. Wir sind alle Schwester und Brüderlech. Dai, da, 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 dai, da, 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 da. Da lassen wir sich freien bis in Hell und Tuckereien. Dai, da, 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 dai, da, 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 dai, 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 dai. Mit harzigen Lieder und mit voller Fläscher Wein. Dai, da, 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 dai, da, 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 dai. La, da, da, dai, da, 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 dai, da, 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 dai, dai, da, da, dai. La, da, da, dai, da, 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 dai, da, 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 dai, 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 dai. La, da, da, dai, da, 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 dai, dai, dai. Sich zu neu für meine Schwester und Brüderle. Lass mir sich freien, was mir singen Liederle. Genug scheint zu weinen mit Herzer Verwundete. Wir sind alle wie Kräuter Verbundete.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, a wonderful evening to all of you. I'd like to welcome you very cordially to the Austrian Parliament now that we present the Simon Wiesenthal Prize 2023. I would like to first thank the host, the Speaker of the Austrian Parliament, Wolfgang Sobotka. Thank you, sir. I would also like to welcome the President of the Federal Council, Margit Göll. Then the Federal Minister of Science, Education and Research, Martin Polaschek. Welcome. As well as the representatives of the diplomatic corps. To all of you, welcome to this event. It's a special pleasure for me to also welcome the contemporaries that will be honored during the awarding ceremony. I would like to welcome them to this event. Helga Fellner-Bustin, Jenno Friedmann, Naftali Fürst, Viktor Klein, Lise Scheiderbauer, and Marian Turski. They stand for all the other contemporaries. Octavian Philipp, Maria Gabrielsson, Otto Nagler, and Katharina Sasso, who during this event will also be honored tonight. Well, unfortunately, they cannot attend this event personally, but I know that some are watching this event via live stream, and I would like to welcome them very cordially. I would also like to welcome the members of the Simon Wiesenthal jury, Katharina von Schnurbein, the chairperson of the Simon Wiesenthal Prize jury, and the anti-Semitism commissioner of the EU Commission. Brigitte Beiler, professor at the Department of Contemporary History. Barbara Stelzel-Marx, who heads the Ludwig Boltzmann Institute for Research into the Consequences of Warfare, as well as Oskar Deutsch, the president of the Jewish community of Vienna. Welcome to all of you. Monika Schwarz-Friesel and Ariel Musikant, both members of the Simon Wiesenthal Prize jury. Unfortunately, they are not able to attend this event, but they're watching this via live stream. And at this point, I would like to welcome them as well. I would also like to welcome those who, during this event, will take the floor. Rakeli Kreisberg, the granddaughter of Simon Wiesenthal and founder of the Swigi Commemoration Initiative. Hanna Lessing, Secretary General of the National Fund of the Republic of Austria for the Victims of National Socialism. Dalia Greenfeld, Associate Director, Europe of the Anti-Defamation League. Andreas Granebitter, Managing Scientific Director of the Documentation Center of Austrian Resistance, DOW. As well as Ahmad Mansour, German, Arab, Israeli psychologist and author. Now, it's great that so many nominees have accepted our invitation. And to all of you, I would like to say a cordial welcome to the Austrian Parliament. Thank you. And then I would like to welcome all the active and former members of the Austrian Parliament, the representatives of churches and religious communities, commemoration initiatives, Association of Victims, as well as commemoration initiatives, and all the representatives of the autochthonous ethnic groups, as well as those representing education, research, and culture. And finally, I'd like to also mention and pay tribute to the Roman Grinberg Klezmer Swing Quartet. They're responsible for the wonderful music that we are going to listen to during this event. Let's all come together and let's celebrate like a big family. There is enough crying. Now we need to join forces. That's what this first piece of music has been about. The Simon Wiesenthal Prize is now awarded for the third time, and once again, numerous projects and initiatives from civil society have been submitted. Well, the exact number will be mentioned by our host, the Speaker of the Austrian Parliament, Wolfgang Sobotka. And I would now like to hand over to him. Thank you.
(197)
197 entries. The youngest is 17, and the oldest one 103. So we've had entries from 31 countries and 10 people who witnessed these events that we're going to honor. Is this enough, what we have been doing? Is this really enough? Well, ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Kreisberg, it's a special honor for us to welcome you here to pay tribute to your grandfather, and thanks also for offering this contribution, this collaboration to us. Mr. Minister, Mr. Mansour, since October 7th, he's experienced special circumstances. And even though life has been quite difficult for him, he's come to Austria. I'd like to pay tribute to him. The same goes to all the jury members. Thanks for doing your work. Thanks for coming here. Without the jury, we could not award prizes to the nominees coming from several European countries. I'd like to thank you very much for your commitment and for being here and for your presence. This should also be an encouragement for you to keep on working. It's great to see that so many members of the Austrian Parliament, both chambers of the Austrian Parliament, the National Council and the Federal Council, have also come here. This is an event organized by the Austrian Parliament. Now, more than in the past, we need to focus on the fight against anti-Semitism, and there is never enough that we can do. Now, we have to raise our voices, we have to pass laws and pursue policies, and every day is a day of remembrance. That's the title of a book penned by Simon Wiesenthal in 1987. From the 1st of January to December 31st, this book documents, for every day of the year, events of the entire history of the Jewish people. Events, or to put it more clearly, killings, massacres, mass killings, extermination. Not a day the year goes by where there has not been a crime committed against the Jewish people. So every day, yesterday, today, tomorrow, every day is a day of remembrance. Just think about October 7th, 1939. On that day, 48 Jews were murdered by the Nazis in northern Poland. On October the 7th, 1941, 7,000 Jews were massacred in a ravine in Belarus. On October 7th, 1942, the SS murdered 700 Jews in Lisowiki in eastern Poland and 3,600 in the Treblinka extermination camp. Only 33 of them were still alive when the camp was liberated in 1945. So following they had been deported to Auschwitz, and only, as I said before, only 33 of them were still alive when the camp was liberated in 1945. On the same day, a transport with 21 Jews from Vienna left for Auschwitz, and another with 1,260 children from Theresienstadt. And on October 7th, 1944, the prisoners of the Jewish Sonderkommando burned down the crematorium in Auschwitz, cut through the barbed wire fence, and shot their guards and fled. Most of them were murdered by the SS as they fled. Only a few survived. And now, last year, on October 7th, 2023, the Islamist terrorist organization Hamas continued this chronicle, if you like, and added yet another chapter to this terrible book. Every day is a day of remembrance, and not only that, ever since October 7th, 2023, there has hardly been a day on which somewhere in the world, and here I'm talking about villages, cities, universities, the corporate sector, at one point somewhere in the world, there have been assaults, there's incitement to hatred, there have been attacks and assaults, so Jews living in Europe are afraid again. Now, these barbaric attacks and their consequences have been a nightmare and exceeded our worst expectations. Anti-Semitism and our fight against anti-Semitism, ladies and gentlemen, well, for many years, this was almost a moot point, something that was part and parcel of the culture of remembrance in our country. Generations of politicians before me, as well as my generation and myself, well, we've held countless speeches on just as many memorial days, and in our speeches we've said never again over and over again and committed ourselves to the fight against anti-Semitism. And today, well, today the words of these speeches have faded, and we all feel more than we ever imagined the urgency of their relevance, the relevance of those speeches, because the horror has returned to the reality of our present. And anti-Semitism has reared its ugly head yet again and has made brazen inroads into our societies. And if you cut off one head of this hydra, well, this hydra keeps growing new ones. You can see them on the streets of Europe. You see them in parts of our migrant communities. You see them in parts of the European media landscape. You see it in parts of the art community, and also in the field of research, and also on the fringes of the political spectrum. And what we are seeing with a great deal of astonishment and bewilderment is that being a vociferous anti-fascist does not protect anyone from agitating as an anti-Semite. It's an inverted, it's a perverted morality that is now spreading. So it's probably time to now make sure that the concept of anti-Semitism gets out of the ivory tower of academic research, and it's time to now call a spade. Anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism. What this boils down to really at the end of the day is hatred targeted against the Jews. Now, the hatred against Jews, well, we're seeing that as far as the right is concerned, it's just plain stupid, and as far as the left is concerned, well, it wants to elevate itself in an intellectual way. And as far as the migrant community is concerned, well, what you're seeing is that there's a lot of aggression. Just think about those river to the sea slogans. So there's hatred targeted against Jews, and we have to fight this resolutely by focusing on education, awareness raising, and, if need be, by focusing on the clarity of the law and on the power of the state of institutions. Today, as Simon Wiesenthal wanted, we are honoring organizations and individuals who demonstrate clarity and consistency, who focus on awareness raising, and who are very committed to this concept of consistency. They act on behalf of Jewish life and in favor of diversity and for understanding in our societies. Well, and I really have to point this out. We never have to give up. We should fight for the good cause, and we should come up with an alternative to hatred, and that is understanding. Our goal, and the goal of all democratic forces of this country, has to be the following. We have to focus on decency, on what is right. We have to make sure that there is respect. We have to make sure that you focus on diversity and we have to make sure that there is no room for anti-Semitism. The award winners, well, they are our strong partners in this work. They come from different countries, from Austria, from other European countries, and from overseas, from different walks of life. Now, that is also the spirit of the Simon Wiesenthal Prize, and I hope that they will be able to spread this spirit of the Simon Wiesenthal Prize. We will never give up, never, ever. Thank you very much.
Vielen Dank, Herr Präsident. Meine Damen und Herren.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Simon Wiesenthal was a tireless fighter against anti-Semitism and against indifference to the crimes of the Nazi regime. Before his granddaughter takes the floor, let's view a short film about an extraordinary person.
Simon Wiesenthal fought tirelessly to end the widespread indifference towards the crimes of National Socialism. After his liberation from Mauthausen concentration camp in 1945, he made it his life's work to track down Nazi criminals and bring them to justice. The maxim "justice, not vengeance" was at the center of his work and would later become the title of his memoirs. As a documentarian and critical voice, he was barely recognized in post-war Austria and was frequently a target of hostilities. It was not until much later that his lifetime achievements were honored, both in Austria and internationally. Wiesenthal rigorously pursued the principle that a democracy must fight injustice and the refusal to come to terms with its own history by all available means.
Simon Wiesenthal was also a great advocate of educating the young. He regularly invited Austrian and German school children to his office in Vienna for conversations, and his granddaughter, Rachel Kreisberg, took this as inspiration for a special initiative, the Swiggy Tours. What happens there and why they are so important, and what the Wiesenthal family says about this award, we will now hear from the granddaughter of Simon Wiesenthal, Rachel Kreisberg, founder of the Swiggy Memorial Initiative.
I'm very excited, so one second. Dear Mr. President Sobotka, dear guests, friends, and colleagues, it takes visionary people, teamwork, and funding to establish an excellent and well-timed initiative. The Simon Wiesenthal Prize is such an initiative. The idea was born a few years ago during the visit of an Austrian delegation to Israel, headed by Mr. Wolfgang Sobotka, who met with the family of Simon Wiesenthal. It then required advocates for the proposal, people with influence in the Viennese Parliament, who drafted the concept of the Simon Wiesenthal Prize with clear objectives and a budget. The next stage was its implementation by calls for proposals, which were addressed by hundreds of organizations. The submitted proposals needed to be evaluated and ranked by a knowledgeable team of experts, and eventually the final nominees would be invited to this Parliament for the moment that the awardees would be announced. But for this step-by-step development of an idea to happen, it needed only one man, and that man is Simon Wiesenthal. The conceptualization of the Simon Wiesenthal Prize started during his stay in the Janowska concentration camp, during the Death March, at the moment of his liberation of the Mauthausen concentration camp, and it continued right immediately after his offer to aid the American forces to search for Nazis and their collaborators. He painstakingly revealed the horror of the final solution and the crimes perpetrated by the Nazis. Years of devoted search yielded major results in bringing the perpetrators to justice. And it was during these years that the concept of justice, not vengeance, was shaped, becoming a slogan representing Simon Wiesenthal's way, who believed in accumulating evidence, preparing for trial and for a just sentence. He would do this with the help of a small team of global volunteers, with his contacts with the Israeli Mossad, and with the help of numerous witnesses who were fellow Holocaust survivors. He could not have achieved all of this without the steadfast support of his wife, Zila Müller. Zila and Simon were both born in 1908 in Buchach, Galicia, nowadays in Ukraine. They studied in the gymnasium and married in 1936 in Lvov. They stood side by side until the death of my grandmother, Zila, in November 2003 at the age of 95. And I understood that you were the doctor who helped my grandmother in her last few years. My grandfather, Simon Wiesenthal, passed away in September 2005 at the age of 96. And I am now part of the Austrian commemoration efforts of the life and legacy of Simon Wiesenthal, together with the Vienna Wiesenthal Institute, which hosts and researches his archive. The Parlament Simon Wiesenthal Prize, we contribute to the commemoration of the vibrant Viennese jury. Yossi Beck, my colleague who is here with me, and myself have been developing the Simon Wiesenthal Genealogy Geolocation Initiative, known as SWIGI. SWIGI enables researchers, historians, students, and school children to research and commemorate the life of Viennese Jews before and during World War II. In cooperation with the Austrian Parliament's Democracy Education Department, we are working with schools in Vienna. These initiatives are partially funded by the National Funds and the Future Funds. We have developed various SWIGI tours that commemorate Jewish life as well as the life and legacy of Simon Wiesenthal. My family in Israel, which includes my parents, Paulinka and Gerard Kreisberg, my brothers Dani and Yuri and their families, and the 8 great-grandchildren of Simon and Zila would like to congratulate the hundreds of applicants of the 3rd Simon Wiesenthal Prize, the 10 finalists, and the soon-to-be-announced 3 awardees of 2023. We are sure that the winners very much appreciate being chosen by a prestigious committee, that they will continue their excellent work and actively follow the timely objectives of the Simon Wiesenthal Prize. Before I conclude, I'd like to call upon everyone present here today to actively contribute to the release of the 134 hostages, the Jewish and Arab women, men, children, the 14-month-old baby, Kfir Bibas, and the 39-year-old Tal Shoham, who has dual Israeli-Austrian citizenship, who were kidnapped on the 7th of October 2023 and have been in captivity for 158 days. Bring them back home. Thank you.
Vielen Dank.
Thank you very much, Racheli Kreisberg. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd now like to hand over once more to the Roman Greenberg Swing Quartet. Roman Greenberg is one of the most versatile Jewish artists. He's a piano player and he also sings. Sasha Kleinert plays the clarinet, Anne Meyer plays the counterbass, and Wolfgang Bauer the drums, percussion instruments. Thank you very much for the musical accompaniment, dear gentlemen. And we now come to the next piece of music. The awarding ceremony will start very soon, and we're now going to listen to a medley.
Você שלום במרומיו. הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. כל העולם כולו גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד. כל העולם כולו גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד. כל העולם כולו גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד. כל העולם כולו גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד. והעיקר, והעיקר לא לפחד, לא לפחד כלל. והעיקר, והעיקר לא לפחד כלל. והעיקר, והעיקר לא לפחד, לא לפחד, לא לפחד. והעיקר, והעיקר לא לפחד, לא לפחד, לא לפחד, לא לפחד, לא לפחד, לא לפחד, לא לפחד. לא לפחד, לא לפחד, לא לפחד, לא לפחד, לא לפחד, לא לפחד, לא לפחד.
Meine Damen und Herren,
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's now start with the awards ceremony. The first category is called Holocaust Awareness Raising. It's about civil society commitment and Holocaust awareness, and the following entries have been submitted. Hallos and Anna Will, Zentropa, and a posthumous nomination, unfortunately, Heidemarie Uhl. All three projects were submitted by Austria. Now, of course, we want to know what these individual projects are about, and you can see this in a short video summary.
By erecting a memorial on their own property, Alois and Erna Will have shown that every human life that fell victim to the unspeakably cruel crimes of the Holocaust counts. The Dorna Memorial is intended to send out a clear message and show that small gestures can unfold a deeper meaning. Between 2001 and 2007, Centropa's Ukrainian team interviewed 278 Holocaust survivors who had all fled or joined the Soviet army when the Nazis invaded Ukraine on 22 June 1941. When Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine began in 2022, Centropa started to provide funding to a group of teachers particularly committed to education about the Holocaust and Jewish history. For decades, historian Heide Marie Uhl engaged in studying and raising awareness of the Holocaust in Austria. Her research focused on remembrance politics, the politics of history, National Socialism, the Second World War, and the Holocaust. She was a member of the Austrian delegation to the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, IHRA, and chairwoman of the City of Vienna's Advisory Board for the installation of commemorative plaques and memorials.
Memorials and signs of remembrance organized by the City of Vienna. All right, I now call on Alois and Will, as well as the other prize winner. This is your applause. This award, as I said before, is for civic engagement on education about the Holocaust or Holocaust awareness raising. And I now call on the president of the Jewish community of Vienna, as well as the Institute of the Jewish religion in Austria, as well as the Speaker of the Austrian Parliament, Mr. Sobotka, as well as Mr. Deutsch from the Jewish community of Vienna. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Minister, dear award winners, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I'd like to speak off the cuff now, even though we are eagerly awaiting the main award winner. But let me just thank the Speaker of the Austrian Parliament. Thanks for this idea that was already mentioned by Racheli Kreisberg. Thanks for making sure that the Simon Wiesenthal Prize can be awarded and is being awarded by the Austrian Parliament. But just think about the words uttered by the Speaker and reflect on those words, reflect on what he said during his speech. Now, it's not gesucht. He really meant it. This comes from the heart. And I know this because I've talked to him quite often. We've had a lot of talks over the years. I've listened to many speeches held by you on different occasions. And for this, for your heartfelt commitment, I would like to pay tribute to you. Thank you. Now, it's a pleasure and honor for me to announce the Award for Civic Engagement on Education about the Holocaust, and to announce the following. The winner is Centropa. So this prize is awarded to Centropa. Congratulations. Let me briefly talk about this association. So, Edward Sirota, who I've known from day one, ever since you've come to Vienna, well, you started out doing research in Romania back in the 1990s. Now, no one actually remembered the persons featured in those pictures and stories. But you want to fight oblivion, and that's why Centropa, together with an international team, well, from 2000 to 2010, Centropa conducted interviews with more than 1,200 Jewish Holocaust survivors or Shoah survivors in 15 countries in Central and Eastern Europe, the former Soviet Union, as well as in the Balkans. These life stories were then published in an online database that is available worldwide. Every single one of these life stories offers unique insights into the history of the entire 20th century. But Centropa is not just focused on the Shoah, it's also focused on life surrounding the Shoah. And what I appreciate a lot, and I don't know if you've received the prize for this purpose, but what I find great is that last year you already received a Medal of Honor, and here in Vienna, Centropa deals with Shoah survivors. Every month there are meetings in cafes where coffee is served and other refreshments. There are several dinners, and it's not just him, but also his entire team that does this important work. And that's why, for all these reasons that I've enumerated, the Simon Wiesenthal Prize goes to you. Thank you very much, and congratulations. Congratulations, Mr. Saruta. A few words of thank you.
Centropa was started in the year 2000 when I had tried to find the financing and the support in Germany and other countries in the United States, because what I wanted to do was to talk to the oldest living Jews in Central and Eastern Europe, not only about what they went through during the Holocaust, but their lives before and after, all the way up until the 2000s. And I went to see Peter Maringer, the chef de cabinet in the in your ministry at the time, and I explained to him that, of course, I had to change things a little. I said, these are for the oldest Jews in the ehemalige Kronenlanden from the Österreichische Monarchy. He said, sit down. And we talked, we spoke, and in very short order, we had the support from his ministry, from Hannah Lessing. We had a lot of help from the Austrian Foreign Ministry. And then later came the support from the Zukunftsfond, and I'm sure I'm forgetting many others. But the important thing is that we set to work. And the idea was to go to the oldest living Jews and speak with them. But I used to work in television when I had different color hair, and I've also worked in print. So therefore, I didn't want to use video because I wanted to go back to these people time after time after time. The interviews average over 6 to 7 hours. And instead of using video, we digitized 25,000 family pictures, and they told a story about every single picture. And that ended up at 40,000 pages of stories, all of which is preserved, and we could not have ever done it without the help that we originally got from Austria. After we got the help from Austria, then came the Claims Conference, then came German foundations and ministries, then came the Americans. And the important thing is we preserve Jewish memory. But what made it exciting on the way is that Tanya Eckstein, who did our interviews here in Vienna, Tanya started a club for the people we interviewed. I can promise you something. There are historians in this room. We're the only oral history institute with a social club. We meet every month, and Tanya makes sure, during COVID, we sent out over thousands of books to our seniors here in Vienna, Prague, and Budapest. And I went to families in America, I went to families everywhere, and asked for them to send these books. We meet every month. Could I ask Zentropa's Mitglieder, Café Zentropa Mitglieder, to stand up, please? Wir haben ein paar Gäste vom Café Zentropa. Bitte aufstehen, bitte. Wir sehen uns nächsten Monat, wie immer.
All right, I'll see you all next month.
Prückel, glaube ich.
In Café Prückel.
Just as important, what do you do with these stories? Education. And we now work in over at least 1,200 schools. We work here in Austria, but to me the most important thing is Holocaust education in the land where the Holocaust took place. And the country we are the most engaged with is Ukraine. I just came back from Chernovitz 2 days ago. And to walk into a high school in Chernovitz and see, the first thing you see are pictures of former students who were killed. They had been teenagers a few months ago, before this, and now they're dead. But there's still students in these schools. And Ukraine, we have over 400 teachers who are fascinated with learning about Jewish history and Holocaust. When they learn about their town's Jewish history, they want to learn about their own history. So these are the things that Zentropa is doing. That's where we're doing it. And I want to thank you all for this prize. And my entire team would like to thank you as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Herzlichen
Congratulations to Edward Sirota. So, ladies and gentlemen, this takes us to award ceremony 2, projects dedicated to the fight against anti-Semitism. The award for civic engagement in the fight against Semitism, the following nominations: Asociación Cultural Mota de Judíos, Spain. This project was already nominated once in 22, Elnet from Germany, and SOS Mitmensch from Austria. Again, we would like to show you what these projects are about, so short video.
The name of the Spanish village, Castrillo Mata Judíos, means Jew killer camp. After a referendum, the village officially changed its name back to that used before 1632, Castrillo Mota de Judíos, which translates to Jews Hill Camp. The cultural association Mota de Judíos aims at reviving the historic Jewish heritage of the village. The European Leadership Network, ELNET, acts as a think tank and network organization in the context of European-Israeli relations. It focuses on foreign and security policy, anti-Semitism, and innovation. ELNET runs an education campaign known as Question Wall, which collects, publishes, and answers questions about Jewish life. For years, SOS Mitmensch fought together with other organizations and Holocaust survivors to stop the publication of the right-wing extremist and anti-Semitic magazine Aula. In December 2018, SOS Mitmensch submitted a 300-page dossier to the Public Prosecutor's Office in Graz to prove that between 2008 and 2018, Aula had presumably been violating Austria's National Socialism Prohibition Act. The fight against Aula is an example of how a committed civil society can successfully stand up against anti-Semitic machinations.
Semitic activities. So great projects. Where are the nominees? Can I ask you to stand up? Please stand up so that we can applaud you for your great achievements. So for the award ceremony, I asked the jury member and Professor of History Barbara Stelzel-Marx and the Speaker of the Austrian Parliament. Only what we remember, not the things we forget, lets us learn. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Minister, ladies and gentlemen, that is the motto on the commemorative panel in Rechberg. Only what we remember, not what we forget, lets us learn. Monuments, street names, city names, those are witnesses, instruments and expression of history, policy, and commemorative culture. They are also the material storage of every society, and they are political symbols, the subject of fights for definition. Let's think about the discussions about street names, the renaming of street names in Graz, in Vienna, Germany. Discussions about monuments and memorials. The Anschluss, Finis, Austria, and the traces of the Nazi regime and of the Holocaust are still there. Sometimes we don't see them, but subcutaneously they are still existing, buried in the landscape, and they have to be dug out and made visible. I may also mention that today in the Ministry of the Interior, we have inaugurated an exhibition called Hitler's Executive, the Austrian police under the Nazi regime. The life's work of Simon Wiesenthal was to make these traces and tracks visible, because education means resistance, and that is also the motto of our award winners. So you might have guessed who it is. So I may now announce the award winner in this category of civic engagement against anti-Semitism is the Asociación Cultural Castillo Motor de Judíos. This cultural association does commemorative work at various levels with the objective of keeping the Jewish legacy and heritage alive and visible. And in 2014, they even changed the name of their village, as we have seen and heard in the video. Now it's Castillo Motor de Judíos. That is a visible token of living commemoration and remembrance culture, according to the motto, education and knowledge is resistance. Congratulations and all the best for your important work.
Herzliche Gratulation.
Congratulations, Senor Perez.
Unas pocas palabras, por favor. Gracias.
Dear authorities, ladies and gentlemen, the residents of Castrillo Mota de Judíos are grateful for the recognition that the people of Austria, through their representatives in Parliament, have given to our town. In the last 10 years, Castrillo Mota de Judíos has launched an exciting project to recover the memory of the Jewish community that founded our town almost 1,000 years ago. In recent times, Castrillo Mota de Judíos has become an international reference in the fight against anti-Semitism and therefore has had to endure several attacks by anti-Semitic groups. Despite this, Castrillo Mota de Judíos has continued to defend the values of culture and heritage as valid tools in the struggle for equality, freedom, and peace. Values that constitute three of the most precious assets for modern democratic societies. For all these reasons, it is a honor for us to have it distinguished by the Austrian Parliament in this year's Simon Wiesenthal Awards, and we sincerely thank its president and his entire team for the treatment and attention they have given us. Thank you very much for the prize.
Thank you very much. All the best. Herzliche Gratulation. Damit sind wir
Congratulations. This brings us to the third category, the main prize for civil society engagement or commitment to anti-Semitism and education about the Holocaust. Amcha from Israel. Then we have Casa Stefan Zweig from Brazil, Jan Grabowski from Canada, as well as Likrat, Lass uns reden Austria, as well as Likrat Switzerland. So what are these projects about? Let's take a look and learn more about these.
AMCHA is an organization founded in 1988 to provide psychological and social support to Holocaust survivors and their descendants in Israel. The services provided by AMCHA Israel include one-on-one counseling sessions with professional therapists, so-called social clubs with support offered to groups, and home visits by volunteers. In addition to supporting survivors, education and outreach is another important part of AMCHA's activities. Casa Stefan Zweig is a non-profit organization under private law based in Petrópolis in Rio de Janeiro. It was founded in 2006 with the aim of creating a museum in the last home occupied by Stefan Zweig and his wife, to preserve the memory of the writer by means of personal objects, books, photos, and films. Casa Stefan Zweig also serves as a memorial to exile. Jan Grabowski is a Polish historian and professor of history at the University of Ottawa. Over the past 2 decades, he has become one of the leading historians engaged in countering anti-Semitism and promoting Holocaust education. Among his research interests are aspects relating to the extermination of Polish Jews and the history of Jewish-Polish relations between 1939 and 1945. Likrat is a project that brings Jewish and non-Jewish youth together through dialogue. In Hebrew, Likrat means coming together. The idea of a dialogue project for young people was born in Switzerland in 2002. Since 2015, Likrat has also been running in Austria. In the project, Jewish pupils known as Likratinos and Likratinas receive training on how to raise awareness about the Shoah and pass on accounts of survivors.
Survivors and their accounts. Congratulations to all the nominees. Please stand up and receive your applause for these terrific projects. Congratulations, and thank you very much for the very important work that you do. Thank you. Now for the presentation of the main prize, I would now like to invite the chairwoman of the Simon Wiesenthal Prize jury and the Anti-Semitism Commissioner of the EU Commission, Katharina von Schnuben, as well as the Speaker of the Austrian Parliament, again, Wolfgang Sobotka. Ladies and gentlemen, my honor is to announce the main prize. Before doing so, on behalf of the jury, let me say that all the decisions have been made unanimously. Let me also announce that just like last year, all the European nominees and winners will be invited to the Civil Society Forum in Brussels in November. The European Commission every 2 years brings together Jewish and non-Jewish organizations committed to the fight against anti-Semitism and Holocaust remembrance and the promotion of Jewish life. And you will receive the invitations before the summer. And now it's my honor and privilege to announce the winners of the main prize of the Simon Wiesenthal Prize 2023. Let me say a few words, even though the video has explained most things already. So this organization would need to be invented if it didn't exist. This is an organization empowering young people to do outreach work, talking with students, conducting workshops, talk about their own Jewish identity and Jewish life. They also talk with students about Israel, the Holocaust, and they do so in a very direct and natural manner. Now, when in Brussels we had our first meeting bringing together Jewish representatives and representatives of individual countries back in 2019, it was a rather large-scale event, so we had invited Likrat, a Likrat representative, to explain things to us. When I heard about this project for the first time, I said, well, this project should actually exist in every single EU member country. The fact that it has existed in Austria and Switzerland for quite a time and has been very successful speaks volumes. Well, there aren't enough Likratinos because there is so much demand. It's quite difficult for you to meet that tremendous demand. And I hope that this prize will contribute to even more representatives receiving training. I would like to also thank the trainers behind it. There's a lot of volunteer work, a lot of time and energy is invested to make sure that young Jews can be trained properly to act as multipliers and educators. Thank you very much, and congratulations once more. So, as far far as Liquid Austria is concerned, I'd like to pay tribute to Beatrice Gricheli, who is cultural counselor of the Jewish community in Vienna, and for Liquid Switzerland, we have John Kreutner, Secretary General of the Swiss Federation of Jewish Communities, and these two will now take the floor. Please. Mr. Speaker, Ms. von Schnurbein, dear Oskar Deutsch, it's a pleasure and honor for me to accept this prize tonight. I would like to express my gratitude to you. I'm very happy to be here tonight as an Austrian-Swiss national, which goes to show that this project is a cross-border project bringing together both Austria and Switzerland. Liquid was set up 20 years ago in Switzerland, as has already been mentioned by my association SEG that had launched this initiative. Now, at the time, encounters on an equal footing were actually few and far between. So there were some reservations that people had, and today Liquid is part and parcel of the anti-Semitism prevention work in Switzerland, but also in Austria and in many other countries. And this is something that we're quite proud of. Liquid has spread across the Swiss borders and has grown over the years. Over the years, we have been able to expand its outreach. Now, we're going through difficult times ever since October 7th, and what we're seeing now is that anti-Semitism projects are quite important, just like Liquid. Now, anti-Semitism runs rampant and has led to a wave of anti-Semitism spreading over Switzerland. Now, just a few days ago, as you might have heard, a Jew in Switzerland was almost killed just because he is a Jew. That was the first attempted murder in Switzerland ever since World War II. And that's why it's very important to fight against anti-Semitism and to focus on preventive work and to also engage in an exchange with our partners in Austria, for example. And that's why this recognition of our work in Austria is quite important. We in Switzerland are not part of the EU, but it's great that we have been involved in this project. My thanks go to the SEG predecessors who more than 20 years ago believed in this project and appealed to the Swiss authorities that had also provided financial support and material support. My thanks go to all Liquitinos and Liquitinas that we have trained, and to two people, in particular Michel Ronan, project manager of Liquid, as well as Jonathan Schopik, who's also project manager at Liquid. Jonathan Schopik, well, he is the first graduate, and now he heads the project, and that's why my thanks go to you especially. Thank you very much for handing over this prize to us, and I'm now going to hand over to my colleague. Yes, I would also like to thank you, Mr. Speaker, dear EU coordinator, guests of honor, ladies and gentlemen. Now, in 2013, I visited Zurich, and I met Jonathan Kreutner, the Secretary General of the Swiss Federation of Jewish Communities. And for the first time, we talked about Liquid. From then on, one thing was clear to me: Liquid goes Austria, and the rest is history. And now we're standing in front of you, and it's our honor and privilege to have received this prize. I would like to thank our Swiss partner for this great cooperation that we've had over the years. I would also like to pay tribute to our partners in Germany, Moldova, Hungary, who together with us have pursued goals together, and that's the fight against anti-Semitism. Next year, Liquid Austria will celebrate its 10th anniversary. We have more than 1,000. We've had more than 1,000 encounters, 144 Liquitinos and Liquitinas, and more than 13,000 members that we've reached out to, as well as institutions, schools, companies, as well as homes for the elderly. So we've done a lot of outreach, and we're quite proud of our accomplishments. We are part of the Austrian national strategy to fight anti-Semitism. We are part and parcel of this important education and prevention work. Every single encounter and every single dialogue is a step towards a better future and a better sense of togetherness. But of course, the fight against anti-Semitism unfortunately goes on. We've not reached all of our goals. Through Likrat, a number of interesting dialogues and friendships have emerged, but we always face huge challenges and difficult situations. Ever since October 7th, the mood has become quite toxic in our society and in the classrooms. But especially in times like these, it is vital for us to continue along these lines. Now, as anti-Semitism has reared its ugly head, it's time to speak up and to talk with each other. Yes, it's not always easy, as we have witnessed, but of course, we can also say with conviction that things actually work pretty well, and this is due to our Jewish young people that do the outreach work. And for this, I would like to thank you especially, dear Likratinas and Likratinas. Why don't you stand up for a bit and show us who you are? Thank you very much for the wonderful work that you're doing. So, I would like to pay tribute to you and acknowledge your important work. You are the trailblazers. You are the ones that have reached out to institutions. You are courageous enough to fight for a better future. Dear Likratinas and Likratinas, this is your prize, and you can be very proud of yourselves. My thanks also go to all of our supporters and promoters, our cooperation partners and counselors and friends who over the years have provided tremendous support and who fight for the goals together with us. We're looking forward to a continuation of this successful cooperation. Thank you very much. Last but not least, I would like to thank the entire Likrat team. It's not easy to explain this commitment and dedication expressed by every single team member. Dear team, you know what I'm talking about. Thank you very much. And I say this from the bottom of my heart. It's a pleasure and honor for us to have received this year's Simon Wiesenthal Prize. On behalf of Likrat, I would like to thank you very, very cordially. This prize is in memory of Simon Wiesenthal, who was an indefatigable fighter against anti-Semitism and who also said we should always speak up against anti-Semitism, because if you keep silent, well, this means that you express consent, and that's what we do at Likrat. We're not going to remain silent. We're going to speak up. We're not going to give up our fight for a better future devoid of anti-Semitism. I invite all of you to be part of this fight. An open dialogue is a first step. And with this in mind, let me say, Likrat, let us talk. Thank you.
Nochmals herzliche Gratulation an alle Preise.
Congratulations to all award winners and to all the nominees. Now it's time for music again. Over to the Roman Grinberg Klezmer Swing Quartet.
herzlichen Dank.
Thank you. Now I would like to welcome a high-caliber panel on a very important and topical subject. We're talking about civic courage or moral courage. Please welcome Dalia Greenfield, Associate Director, Europe, Anti-Defamation League. Katharina von Schnurbein, Anti-Semitism Envoy of the EU Commission and Chairwoman of the Simon Wiesenthal Prize jury. Ahmed Mansour, German, Arab, Israeli psychologist and author. And Andreas Kranebitter, Managing Director and Scientific Director of the Documentation Center of Austrian Resistance. Thank you for being here. Ms. Greenfield, can we start with you? The Anti-Defamation League is committed to the fight against anti-Semitism and campaigns against the discrimination and defamation of Jews. So what is your experience at European level? In what way has anti-Semitism changed since the terrorist attack of 7th October? It's a time where Jews have bad lives here. In France, anti-Semitism has risen by more than 1,000%. In Germany, more than 300%. And this is a type of statistics we see everywhere. Netherlands, 800, Brazil, 900%. So the statistics show us how much anti-Semitism has increased. And when we look at reports from Jewish students, they are scared to go to university alone. They say they feel isolated, there's no solidarity, and they don't know how to openly and freely live their Jewish lives. So the trend where Jewish life in Europe and in Germany tended towards more openness, more cooperation, that is changing. Now there is the defense movement. That's not only a European phenomenon, it's global. Mr. Kranebitter, let's look at Austria. To what extent have attacks on Jews increased here? And what form do they take? Well, there's no doubt it's the same in Austria. And we've also heard that from the award winners. The figures have increased. The reporting office for anti-Semitist events provides proof of that. I think tomorrow the annual report is being presented. Our monitoring as well shows the same thing. Our experience with students and school children show that anti-Semitism is always a subject. And in normal times, the problem is that when you do preventive workshops, the best time is when nothing has happened, before an incident happens. But usually we're only called as the firefighters once something has already occurred. But what we have seen since the 7th of October is a big conflagration. And you cannot quell that fire with a workshop. But this prevention and the fight against anti-Semitism must be a continuous firefighting strategy. But that was the bad news. But we also see that work with young people works very well. Anti-Semitic bias is not more deeply entrenched now, and not as much as you might assume when reading the newspapers. So we can be a bit optimistic when it comes to young people and say that I think the situation will improve. Mrs. von Schnurbein, what is your sense when you look at the developments in the EU? In the EU, the situation is similar to what we have just heard. We are very concerned about that. And after 7th October, we immediately said we have to accelerate everything. To give you one specific example, that's the anti-Semitism online. A lot of what is developing there and the language that is now being used has become much more aggressive, much more shameless, really. And this is also reflected in the streets. And this is one of the reasons why we have an infringement procedure against Twitter, because they do not comply with the Digital Services Act. The platform, and that is the same for all big platforms, for the first time in the world, here in Europe, they have rules they need to comply with a view to illegal content. And they have to delete that. There are many other rules as well. More transparency for the users, better mechanisms in order to raise charges. But this aspect that illegal hate speech has to be deleted and that the platform bears the responsibility to make sure that their algorithms are made public to the Commission, and if they don't, they can be sued. That is an important step. Honestly, I think if we cannot control the internet, it means a real danger for our democracy. And in this context, anything that we do when it comes to preventing anti-Semitism and in our reactions, first of all, it's about the Jews, and that is reason enough. But it's also about democracy. And what Jews in Europe experience right now is something that we all will experience if we don't put a stop to it now. Mr. Mansour, you've been living in Berlin since 2004 because you wanted to escape the constant threat of terrorism in Israel. You have been campaigning against anti-Semitism, for democracy, for equal rights and peaceful coexistence. You come from a Palestinian family in Israel. Do you understand the emotions that rose to the surface worldwide after October 7? Well, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. And to answer your question, no. I do understand people who might be empathetic with the suffering of innocent people in Gaza. But even before the first bomb fell on Palestine, people talked about terror. And you have to understand what October 7 was. It was the biggest pogrom since the Second World War. Unfortunately, I watched the 47-minute film, and I have to recommend that to every policymaker before they even open their mouth about Israel, because then you see that it's not a liberation organization, but it's a systematic assassination of people just because they're Jews. And they had fun doing it. People who were killed in their homes at the breakfast table. That is something that we should never accept. It's against humanity. It is something that may start with Jews in Israel, but it may spread to Europe and to the Western world unless we put a stop to it now. What shocks me after October 7 are the dimensions, at the escalation. People go to the streets, cry out anti-Semitist slogans, synagogues are being attacked, young people are being attacked. Unfortunately, that you see in every escalation, but the dimensions that this has taken after October 7 are shocking. This slaughtering of human beings seems not to have deterred anyone. That is a massive cooperation between radical left Islamists and anti-Semitists. And I didn't expect that. It came as a shock. And I have to say one thing about that. It's high time, as you said, to get control of the social media. It's not only Twitter. I know it's very convenient to talk about Twitter because it's in to criticize them. Facebook earned money with the videos about the slaughtering of human people. And TikTok, anti-Semitic content has increased by the 100,000-fold. Social media serve our enemies in order to mobilize and take people to the streets. They've lost any control about places where people have most of their communication, and this must be appealed to everyone. If we want to change things, we need to have democracy of attacks on the social media, and we should have started yesterday. Mrs. Greenfeld, social media is something that you think is important. So what is the role of social media for the education of young people? Well, it's a fact that young people are internet natives. They spend many hours on TikTok, Instagram. Well, Facebook is probably for the older ones. But the fact that they spend hours looking at those videos and the algorithm sends you into a bubble. So on TikTok, if you get extremism once, you get it again and again and again. So there, of course, we need education and analyzing the media and teaching people how to withdraw from that a little, but also making sure that the platforms assume their responsibility. And this is something we haven't achieved yet. We haven't yet achieved to make sure that those platforms actually bear their responsibility and that they actually comply with everything that we have written down on paper as our European and national values. And if we cannot get them to bear their responsibility, which is a transatlantic task, because most platforms have their base in the US. And that means there's a lot of decision-making power is in the US. So we need transatlantic dialogue and commitment. It's a vital thing that we need to step up in the coming years to have even some bit of a chance to control anti-Semitism. Mrs. von Schnurban. Ms. Greenfeld talks about the US, and the EU has done something against Twitter, which is just the beginning. More steps will follow. So what will follow? The Digital Services Act has been in force since August last year. And if you know processes in the EU, knows that an infringement procedure that is opened in December is something that has taken place with lightning speed. So the fact that this has happened so quickly shows that it is an absolute priority, also under the impression of October 7. When the letter was published on Twitter, Elon Musk just answered on Twitter and got the reaction from the Commission that now it's over with that sort of snotty commentary. So we see some positive change on Twitter. They have understood that they actually need to comply with the law and become more transparent about their algorithms, have to disclose them to the Commission. So if the infringement procedure is concluded, up to 6% of their annual sales could be the penalty they have to pay. And I think in the coming years, we are going to see some real change. The very big organizations have to justify their actions to the Commission and smaller platforms within their national states. All national states now build structures in order to make sure platforms comply and to allow for enforcement. I know it's not visible right now because we still see all that hate speech on social media, but things will change. Also under the impression that it's a real danger for democracy. Mr. Mansour, moral courage is something that you have, and you speak out and you're being threatened for that. Can you share some of the things that you have suffered? Can you go on the street? Well, it's mainly on social media. I have a difficulty to answer this question because it's not about me. I may be a little more well-known than many others, but many people are scared right now in Germany, in Austria, in Switzerland, in France. 134 people in the tunnels of Gaza as well. When no one calls for humanitarian aid, for medical aid, for getting medical help, I think that's a central question. It's not about individuals. I got so many calls from friends of mine who didn't even talk as Israelis. They were Germans. They had children. And since October 7, they're scared because people have made them Israelis and Jews. That's a dramatic situation with dramatic dimensions. I think the decisions that we take today, whether it's at EU level or at country level, what we decide today of how we approach anti-Semitism will shape Jewish life in Europe 10 years from now. That's an essential thing, and everyone is called upon to make their voices heard, to go where it's not convenient. We have heard about so many projects to do just that, going where it's not convenient and not comfortable, and contacting people in order to dismantle anti-Semitism. No one is born as an anti-Semitist. But social media, the environment, parents, education sometimes turn people into anti-Semitism. And our central task is to dismantle that before it destroys our democracy.
Ich habe Sie nach Ihnen persönlich gefragt, weil Zivilcourage natürlich nicht leicht ist und viele Menschen vielleicht auch Angst haben, Zivilcourage zu zeigen. Und man sieht ja auch, was passiert, wenn man Zivilcourage zeigt. Ja, bitte.
Dann sage ich Ihnen einen Satz dazu. Diese Einschüchterungsversuche, die wirken was. Und ich habe letztes Jahr viele solche Einschüchterungsversuche erlebt. Und ich habe mich gefragt, ob ich vielleicht kürzer treten muss. Ich habe auch Verantwortung für eine Familie. Und am 7. Oktober, als ich aufgewacht bin und die ersten Meldungen angesehen habe, kam natürlich im Hintergrund im Kopf, vielleicht sollte ich zurücktreten. Aber wie gesagt, ich habe mir diese Videos angetan, live auf Telegram, auf Facebook, auf Twitter. Und ich bin ein Vater. Und ich habe diese Kinder gesehen, die gerade neben den Leichen ihrer Eltern stehen. Und habe mich gefragt, wenn nicht jetzt, wann denn muss man Haltung zeigen? Und zwar nicht nur für die Juden, nicht nur für Israel, sondern ich sage es nochmal, für die Menschheit, für die Menschlichkeit, für die Demokratie, für Europa, für die Art und Weise von uns zu leben. Weil das war ein Angriff auf die Art und Weise, wie wir leben. Und deshalb glaube ich, ist mir egal, was die Konsequenzen sein können. Ich werde geschützt, andere aber nicht. Aber ich will Haltung zeigen, vor allem für meine Tochter und vor allem für die Menschen. und für die Menschen, die auf uns blicken und Vorbilder brauchen, und zwar außerhalb dieser radikalen Szenen.
Herr Granebetter, Sie haben zuerst gesagt, das DÖF bietet Workshops an beim Thema Rassismus, aber auch zum Thema Zivilcourage. Wenn Sie mit jungen Menschen arbeiten, was sind denn die meisten Fragen oder die größten Sorgen auch von jungen Menschen, wenn es um das Thema Zivilcourage geht?
Ja, ich glaube, ich kann da direkt auch anknüpfen an das, was schon gesagt worden ist, dass es wirklich, wenn es um den Aufbau von einer Bereitschaft für Zivilcourage geht, auch darum geht, einfach Vorurteile, Antisemitismus zu versuchen zu bekämpfen, abzubauen. Das heißt, das muss in einer Rechtsextremismusprävention, in so einem Workshop Hand in Hand gehen. Und man beginnt jetzt auch eigentlich damit, also wir beginnen damit, mit der Diskussion von Vorurteilen, von eigenen Vorurteilen. Wir nehmen uns da jetzt auch nicht aus. Vorurteile, Antisemitismus, Rassismus sind Diskurse, die die Gesellschaft durchdringen, und da kann man nicht einfach raushüpfen und sagen, geht mich nichts an, sondern da muss man auch die eigenen Vorurteile bereit sein zu thematisieren, um den Raum auch zu öffnen, dann auch mit den Jugendlichen tatsächlich Erfahrungen der Ausgrenzung selbst diskutieren lassen und dann erst sozusagen beginnen, damit zu arbeiten, dass auch Erfahrungen der Ausgrenzung von anderen aktiv gemacht worden sind und die dann thematisieren. Und dann geht es erst sozusagen weiter, indem man dann den Raum öffnet für eine Diskussion, wie Zivilcourage möglich sein kann in einer Situation, wo Macht herrscht, wo ein Aggressor sozusagen agiert, und da dann eben nicht den Aggressor zu adressieren, sondern auch wirklich die Zivilgesellschaft, die da dabei ist, und das Opfer, und da einzugreifen und zu helfen. Und das funktioniert sozusagen relativ gut in diesen Workshops als Gesamtkonzept, aber sind das zwei Seiten einer Medaille, das Abbauen von Vorurteilen und das Aufbauen von Zivilcourage.
Frau Grünfeld, nach dem 7. Oktober hat es einen Wandel in der Zivilgesellschaft gegeben, aber auch bei der linken Seite, wenn man das so sagen kann. LGBTQ-Bewegung, feministische Organisationen, Klimabewegung rund um Greta Thunberg. Warum sind diese Allianzen plötzlich zerbrochen? Was ist da passiert?
Ich fange mal von der jüdischen Lebensrealität.
Phenomena popping up there. Let's talk about the Jewish lifestyle.
Am 7. Oktober hat sich komplett verändert. Sie alle wissen, wie oft
For Jews, often you introduce yourself by calling your name, and now Jews are changing their name when they use Uber, or they stop using Jewish symbols. So the reality for Jews has worsened, has changed tremendously. What does it mean for the left scene and for progressive people? Well, anti-racism, the climate and LGBTIQ, the LGBTIQ movement, well, over the past 5 to 10 years, we've had queer Jewish festivals. There have been feminist and Jewish festivals. So obviously, suddenly those alliances came to an end. Well, UN Women, for example, that's a case in point. It's the UN Organization for Women. It took it 56 years until it issued a statement on sexualized violence targeted against women on October 7th, and that is a global organization for women's rights. And every other organization, Women Climate, did that. They did nothing. They remained silent. Now, I'm a progressive Jewish queer woman, and what does this mean for me? Well, this means that I have no home. I've got no political home, and I'm not the only one. I'm talking about thousands of young Jews and other people who have no political home any longer. They feel ill at ease in their bubble, whether it's the club scene in Berlin, that's very left-wing. They don't want to be in that bubble anymore because they cannot relate to that. So identity has changed, their life reality has changed, and this will have an impact on how we live today and the next few years and decades. Now, as a young person, as a young Jewish person, I'm now learning that I have to hide my reality, that I cannot show political commitment anymore. Well, this means that has an impact on my stance towards democracy. And to overcome that, well, we need to involve the EU. Alliances need to be forged again. Often, people in Europe don't know, or all over the world don't really know what the Jewish background is. How did Jews actually end up in our countries? What does it mean to be a Jew? And Likrat and other projects are quite important because these young people are multipliers and educators. Will it be possible to forge these alliances? Well, I don't know. Right now, Jews have been left alone, and they're not being supported. It's not a problem facing Jews. Anti-Semitism is a problem facing humanity at large and societies at large. Mr. Mansour, please. Now, I talked about it with the speaker. Sometimes I get quite angry because these problems did not just emerge on October 7th, because they had been festering for a long time. A lot of people had issued warnings, but they were delegitimized, they were vilified even. Now, we live in a society that wants to celebrate diversity, but what about the problems revolving on diversity? These problems are not addressed. I'm not just talking about anti-racism and LGBTIQ and the climate change movement. And, you know, you've got anti-Semitism there, but what about those post-colonial theorists, academia, and the rejection of Israel being called a colonial power, and they also reject Jews, equating it with capitalism. And all of this has been in the works for quite a while. And in order for us to address problems early on, we need to trigger debates, open and sincere debates, where critical views are also expressed. We need to pay heed to people that issue warnings. We need to face reality head on. So there is the left, and there are parts of the left that have not spoken up, but they should get together with us. And because right now what we're seeing is the left marching with anti-Semites, and media, society, and politicians ignored this for much too long, and now it may be too late. Ms. von Schnürbein, let me point out the following. Now, there are many parts of society where people just don't know anything about anti-Semitism, and they don't really know what anti-Semitism is, what the red lines are, and what about criticism leveled at Israel that's non-anti-Semitic? Well, there's a definition. The IRA has come up with a definition of anti-Semitism. This was also adopted by the EU. IRA had adopted in 2016 and the EU in 2017. And the EP and the European Council have also adopted this definition, as well as all the member countries. And still, it's not used sufficiently, this definition of anti-Semitism. And this means that it's difficult for us to raise awareness. We have to make sure that whether it's law enforcement officers or judges or members of the judiciary, they should all know what anti-Semitism actually is. And then NGOs should also learn what anti-Semitism is. I can only speak about anti-Semitism if I am able to identify it. And if I hear anti-Semitic slurs, I need to know how to counter them. It's difficult to reflect on all of this. It needs to become your second nature. This will allow you to take action quickly. So what I recommend is this. You all know this definition of anti-Semitism. Spread the word. It's important for you to delve into the concept and into this definition, and that will allow you to respond quickly and effectively when the going gets tough. It's difficult, of course, to respond quickly and adequately when talking to your parents, or in a school setting, or when teachers talk with the parents. And as soon as you realize that it's full-fledged anti-Semitism, you need to pluck up courage and speak up against it. And there's too little courage out there. Now, I'm not talking about social media now. I'm talking about comments made by individuals. Which means that we don't have to be so courageous if we speak up privately. would require more courage if you do that publicly, openly. Anyway, in the next 10 years, we'll see whether there'll be a continuation of Jewish life. We need to promote Jewish life. That's what we do at EU level. And we're trying to export these ideas to NGOs. There'll be 3 get-togethers quite soon, bringing together NGO representatives and other stakeholders to make sure that we can address all of these issues. It'll be a mapping exercise, and there'll be some brochures and books to be published. And it's important to take action now and to involve the NGOs. All right, we don't have a lot of time because we're in for a highlight. We're going to honor the survivors. To add on questions to you, Mr. Kranebitter, DÖF last year celebrated 60th anniversary. What are the current challenges that you're facing as DÖF? Well, it's true that anti-Semitism runs rampant. That's what studies have confirmed. But I'm also talking about sociological studies that have been conducted in Germany. There is right-wing anti-Semitism that is on the increase. That has been confirmed in Germany, and there is a toxic mix that we're seeing there. Institutions that have existed for decades, and they have documented and analyzed right-wing extremism for a long time. So attacks and right-wing extremism have been on the rise. And this, of course, poses a threat to democracy. We, as well as politicians, need to speak up and need to counter this to make sure that this threat does not become even larger. This is something that affects all of us, not just we from DÖF. Now, Mr. Mansour, final question to you. Moral courage, is this something that helps overcome extremism? Yes, we've seen this in a lot of projects. Speaking up, meeting people at eye level on an equal footing, protecting the democracy. Yes, all of this works. Thanks for this intriguing discussion. Now, during the reception that we'll have later on, why don't you network with the panelists? It's been a wonderful panel discussion, and thank you very much for your statements. Thank you.
I've already said it. Tonight we have another highlight. Like every year, we honor people who survived the Holocaust and who have worked tirelessly to ensure that no one forgets. They speak out in public, in schools, for example. They share their experience in the period between 1933 and 1945. And in the context of the Simon Wiesenthal Prize, 10 of those survivors are now being honored for their extraordinary personal commitment and contribution. Most of the survivors have actually been able to join us, but they will also, some of them will also watch through the live stream. So thank you for your commitment to everyone watching from us online. I know that even receptions in embassies have been organized for survivors. This is not possible everywhere, but a particularly nice validation, as I think. And I now ask a very special person for this part, namely the Secretary General of the National Fund of the Republic of Austria, Hannah Lessing. Ladies and gentlemen, at the award ceremony last year, we found without the survivors, something like the Simon Wiesenthal Award could not exist. Their decades of commitment are an inspiration for everyone who wants to fight against anti-Semitism, who wants to educate about the Holocaust and to strengthen democracy. Their voices are clarion calls. They tell us why we have to be watchful, but they also tell us how people show superhuman strength in abysmal situations. They show us how strong the human will can be. So strong that even when you are going through hell, you find a way to help others. With their work, survivors have sown the seed for the commitment of the young people of today. For this reason, we follow an idea of the jury and honor the survivors every year as a token of our special appreciation. It reminds us of this important task. And with this honor, we say thank you. Thank you for being a voice for everyone who was killed and can no longer speak their own voice. Thank you for again and again being ready to confront your painful memories and to share your story with the next generations. Thank you for warning, and thank you for giving us hope. And this honor is also a promise, a pledge. We've heard you and we've understood you. Your commitment is not in vain. We will carry on the torch. Like last year, the survivors will accept this honor as representatives of all other survivors who speak out in public, every single one of them in their own and specific way. I may now ask the survivors and call them in alphabetic order. 4 of them live in Austria, 2 in Israel, the others in the US, Romania, Norway, and Poland. Those among you who are here in person are asked to come up to the stage. And now I hand over to the speaker. I ask Helga Feldner-Prustin from Austria to come to me. Born as Helga Pollack in 1929 in Vienna. In 1938, her father was sent to Buchenwald and later to Auschwitz. Together with her mother and sister, who is now also being honored, she was sent to Theresienstadt in 1943. She escaped the deportation to Auschwitz 3 times, and the entire family was lucky enough to survive and meet again in Vienna. After the war, Helga became a doctor, and since the 90s, she is a survivor. And she says, dignity and respect are essential human values to me. Thank you and congratulations. Next, I welcome Jenno Friedman, who has come to us from the US. Jenno Friedman was born in 1930 in Czechoslovakia. He survived Auschwitz, Mauthausen, and Gusen. And it is his life's task to carry on the memory of all the Jews who died in the death march and to remind everyone of the countless graves along those marches. His daughter says this: "My father is a Holocaust survivor who spends his days and night tirelessly educating young and old about the Holocaust. He encourages people everywhere in the world to visit the tombs so that these victims will never be forgotten." Now I ask Octavian Philip. He watches us from the Romanian embassy in Bucharest, and the representative of the Romanian Culture Ministry is accepting his deed in his stead. The last living Holocaust survivors in Romania. His family was murdered. He survived several camps, Auschwitz and Birkenau, as a child, and he said about it, Auschwitz is the biggest tomb that humanity has ever seen. And the next, Naftali Fürst. Please come to us. She was born in 1932 in Bratislava. As of 42, he and his brother and his parents were sent to the working camp of Sered. With the age of 12, he was deported to Auschwitz and then sent to Buchenwald on the death march. His family is considered the only Bratislava family where parents and children survived. Today, he lives in Israel and is committed to the work with Yad Vashem. He's the president of the International Buchenwald Committee, and he says about his work as a survivor, it is our duty on behalf of the men, women, and children who were killed to share our story again and again. Our next guest of honor from Norway unfortunately could not join us. She was born in 1937 in Vienna. Her fate is moving. It was her own mother who denounced her family. The father was killed in Auschwitz. The children survived Theresienstadt. After the war, Maria came to Norway to a foster family. And she was active for many years as a Holocaust survivor. And she said, the echo of their voices, I can still hear it. It's important for us to listen with our inner ear because they have important stories to tell. Very happy. The next guest of honor, Viktor Klein from Austria. He was born in 1927 in what is today Ukraine at the age of 16. He and his family were deported to Auschwitz. His mother and two siblings were killed. Viktor, his brother, and the father survived. Mauthausen, Melk, and Ebensee. I couldn't imagine that people are simply sent to the gas chambers. My mind was not able of grasping that you kill and burn people just like that. He says, you have to educate the young about what happened in the Holocaust. Having survived is my revenge. Our next guest of honor, Otto Nagler from Israel, unfortunately could not join us here, but he watches us online, and the daughter of his cousin, Katharina Riha, is going to accept the honor in his stead. Otto Nagler was born 1920 in Vienna, was a member of a Zionist youth organization. His grandmother and great-aunt were killed in Theresienstadt. Otto Nagler for years worked in hydrology and development aid, and today he is 103 years young and still keeps speaking to young people. His big concern is the fight against anti-Semitism, and in a letter of acknowledgement he said, I tried to improve the life of the poorest, and particularly as a Jew, I wanted to make a contribution to a better life for all of us. The next survivor unfortunately could not join us. It's Katharina Sasso, known to many as Käthe Sasso. Her good friend Gitti Fenko is going to accept the honor in her stead. Käthe was born in 1926 in Vienna. As a 16-year-old, she was a resistance fighter. In 1923, she was detained and in 1944 was sent to Ravensbrück. In 1945, she was able to escape during the death march. As of the 1990s, she tirelessly worked as a Holocaust survivor, and she sees her life's task in Group 40 on the Zentralfriedhof, where the resistance fighters were buried. 2013, thanks to her commitment, a national memorial site was erected there. In one of her numerous interviews, she once said, one supporting the other, not asking why, just helping. I've never lost the belief that goodness and humanity will bring you further than meanness and brutality. That's what I think is the love of humanity. Next, I call upon Lise Scheiderbauer from Austria. Born in 1936 in Vienna, she is the sister of Helga Feldner-Buster. As I've said, she was deported to Theresienstadt with her mother. Lise spent 2 years in a children's home together with severely disabled children, and one day when she woke up, she was the only child there. All the others had been deported with their companions, and she thinks she survived with the help of her big sister. After the war, Lise became a dancer in Salzburg and in Vienna. Later, she worked with her husband as a film producer. On her work as a Holocaust survivor, she says, "As long as I can crawl, I'll crawl to schools and tell my story." And she also says, "I consider myself a miracle. And if you are a miracle, you have to be happy." And last but not least, Marian Turski. Marian Turski was born in 1926 as a Pole of Jewish descent. He was in the ghetto of Litzmannstadt and in 1944 was deported to Auschwitz. He survived the death march to the concentration camp of Buchenwald, and on the 8th May of 1945, he was liberated in the ghetto of Theresienstadt. Until today, he works as a journalist in Warsaw. He's a member of the International Auschwitz Committee and the International Auschwitz Council. Marian Turski said, "The 11th commandment says, don't be indifferent. If any minority is being discriminated against, the essence of democracy is that the majority rules. But democracy means that the rights of minorities need to be protected. For if you are indifferent, before you know it, people will be indifferent to you. And suddenly some Auschwitz is going to drop on you from the sky."
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the survivors have done very important things for us because they've taught us many lessons. All right, I would now like to ask all the nominees and the award winners and the jury members to step up and to take a family picture. Our photographer will try to include everyone, all these wonderful people, in one picture. So why don't you step forward and then we'll take a group photo of everyone. All right, while people come forward, let me also say something else. And yeah, we're going to manage to have everyone in one picture. Well, there'll be individual photos taken after the family picture. Helga Bustin, I think you have to move to row number 1. Yeah, why don't you step forward a little bit so that we can all see you. All right, the survivors, maybe they should come to the front. That's a good plan that we're now devising. Okay, I hope that everyone is in the picture. Again, as I said before, there will be individual photos after the family picture. All right, individual photos after the family picture. The award winners, the survivors, and the jury members will then be asked to come to the photo point. Parliament staffers will take you there. It's in the plenary lounge. The photo point is located in the plenary lounge. And the staffers will take you there. So look at the camera, all of you. It worked well, even though the photographer did not have a ladder. Anyway, thanks for the wonderful picture. Okay, why don't you move over to the photo point? All the survivors, the jury members, and the award winners, as well as the nominees. Please take your seats. All right, ladies and gentlemen, one more thing that I want to share with you. Please follow the others and move over to the photo point. Just follow the flock of the survivors. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, something else I'd like to share with you, the Simon Wiesenthal Prize 2024. Well, from the 13th of March, you can submit your entries. You're all cordially invited to submit entries. It's important to apply again and again. All right, this has been the Simon Wiesenthal Prize 2023, the awarding ceremony. Thanks for your attention, and thanks also for the admiration that you've shown for the award winners. There'll be a function, some food and refreshments will be served. The parliamentary staffers will show the way. Please use the entrance over there, because the one on the other side, well, the roads are, the doors are closed there. Anyway, I hope that you network during the function. That's very important in times like these, as we've heard. And we're now going to listen to a wonderful piece of music again. I would like to thank the Roman Greenbeck Swing Quartet very much. Thanks for your musical support. Great evening.
Ein bisschen Sonne und ein bisschen Regen, ein ruhig Ort im Kopf zu legen, ein bisschen gesund kann man glücklich sein. Ein Schuhkasock und ein Kleidernlattes in Käschene, ein 3-4 Slottes, ein bisschen gesund kann man glücklich sein. Die Luft ist frei, für jeden gleich. Die Sonne, sie scheint für jeden einem, oder reich, 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 reich. Ein bisschen Freude und ein bisschen Lachen, einmal mit freien Schnäpsel machen. Ein bisschen gesund kann man glücklich sein. Einer sucht das Schieres, einer sucht Gewieres, einer meint die ganze Welt. Einer meint, das ganze Glück hängt nur auf dem Geld. Sollen alle suchen, sollen alle kriechen, doch ich tracht bei mir. Ich darf das auf Kapores, weil das Glück steht bei mein Tier. Ein bisschen Sonne und ein bisschen Regen, ruhig vor dem Kopf zu legen, ab wie gesinnt kann man glücklich sein. Ist frei, für jeden gleich. Die Sonne, sie scheint für jeden einem oder reich. Ein bisschen frei, ein bisschen lachen, am Mund nicht frei, das Schnäpsel machen. Ab wie gesinnt kann man glücklich sein. Ab wie gesinnt kann man glücklich sein. Gesund muss man glücklich sein.